Okay. Jonathan, can you unmute your mic?
A very good afternoon, everybody. Thank you for that, John. I couldn't unmute myself, but anyway, I'm here now. Thank you so much indeed, everybody. It's good to share this floor with so many experts and eminent speakers, friends and colleagues as well. I know there's quite a few different colleagues from around the world that I've previously worked with. I'm Jonathan Ledger from the Department for International Trade, part of UK government, but also I operate my own business within the technical and vocational education and training space, Global Skills Ledger. And I'm just going to give a quick overview really regarding some experience dealing with technical and vocational education and training and how that can be used to fill infrastructural development issues. So this is skills gap, this is underskilled, this is about inclusivity, this is about reaching the hard to reach part of the labor force and using that expertise to really drive what you do in infrastructural development, such as with ICT, maybe with energy and power, could be marine and rail logistics, might be agriculture, which I think George just mentioned, food tech, food processing, can be healthcare. So there's lots of different parts of the infrastructure that can make use of it. And I've got quite a bit to whiz through. So we'll just dive in. Just to set out, and I think you know this as friends to the United Kingdom, the UK is really looking to work long-term to enable systemic change with skills and education, to support economic growth through a skilled workforce, skilled labour force, and one that is more attuned to those employers, those industry players that need the skills operating in their corporation, and also, of course, to share world best practice in education generally, but also specifically in technical and vocational, and to create mutually beneficial opportunities for everybody in that process. So quite a lot of work going on there. And the next part really is to kind of set out the skills diversity. And I think in today's presentations, you've seen how many different facets there are to technical and vocational education and training. And it's not just, one specific element that is of interest. There are lots of different areas, whether it's, virtual reality, whether it's MOOCs, they all form part of what we try to do. And I think, that in itself, makes many challenges for all of us. We are in an age where infrastructure companies need to be able to have a diverse range of training and education facilities, and be able to deliver that on the fly according to the infrastructure changes that are required. And you need to think and plan long term about how that happens. And they are the best people to help you understand the demand from employers. And a couple of speakers ago, talked about, that relationship between training providers, between industry sectors, and between policy and education generally. So it's really interesting to see that already being spoken about. So I'm not going to talk about that too much, but it is about this interlinking of a seamless work and education environment, and then using tools, online tools, as well as face-to-face tools, of course, in the world today, in a blended way, to be able to create that seamless path of learning for all students, whether they come from a poor background or they live in remote areas, or they don't have language skills or math skills or science skills, and to be able to utilize that labor force, as well as train those workers already in the workplace that might need to be able to change industries, change subsectors, change job roles, get promoted. This is about lifelong learning and enabling people in this sector, in these sectors, to be able to do that. And I see 4 key challenges for the infrastructural development sector. One is about how to develop and deliver vocational training that's appropriate, that demonstrates competence, that keeps people safe, and yet provides the infrastructure changes that are required by the wider society. There is another element, another challenge around making sure that you get the assessment quality from those workers, those students that are looking at infrastructural development, because there are compliance issues, particularly around, for example, the way power is produced, the way food is produced, the way that water is used and monitored. So lots of these sectors are really kind of more compliant in terms of rules and regulations. And so the workers have to be as well in that chain of command. There is something about the learning environment, because these are quite diverse learning sectors. And so we must make sure that the learning environment is able to flex, twist and change and turn on a penny sometimes for these infrastructural development areas. And of course, making sure that we've got enough teachers with the right occupational education and training experience. And that means making sure that people have worked in those sectors and are able to walk the walk and talk the talk. So let's quickly take a look at the skills element, the skills delivery. So this is about finding, the right policy dialogue, the right policy implementation, making sure that that policy drives itself at reaching hard to reach students, that it is looking at, how we provide equipment, do we need access to mobile technology? And again, I'm just listening to one of the other presentation that was talking about, the amount of users of landlines compared to mobile. I live in a part of the UK, 5%, that will never have high-speed broadband. So, we are totally dependent on mobile technology here to access high-speed internet. But in other parts of the UK, they have high-speed fibre and all that, and it's not so much of an issue. So even in the UK, you can be digitally poor or have, access issues to high-speed internet. It's not just, in rural parts of Nigeria and other parts of Africa. It, happens here too. This is about safeguarding, so how we make the learning environment safe. And if you are dealing with factories and power plants and water plants and all of that, how do you make sure that the learners are safe in those environments, and how are they supported by education providers to make that happen? So a quick raft of things to think about when it comes to skills delivery. The assessment quality, of course, has to be maintained. We've already mentioned the fact that we are talking about helping workers to achieve competence standards as well as meet rules and regulations around those infrastructure development areas. So, but you've still got to try in that challenge to keep our students busy, the workers busy, making sure that it's learner-centered, to make sure that the teacher performance is as best as it can be, and that you deliver a high-quality, high-competence learning and development continuous process. The learning environment. Now, we touched on this with the diversity grid that I showed you, but this is about, really, the heart of this is about that message that so many have already talked about, which is making sure that employers drive the agenda. Employers know what skills they want, they know when they need them, they know how many engineers that are required, in the next 5 years, the next 10 years, and you've got to be able to utilize them to get that forward look on workforce development. You then need to use them to help develop the competence standards and to work in partnership with colleges and universities and training providers to develop the curriculum that is required, because that has to be delivered in a way that students and workers can access it. And some of these sectors work 24/7, 365. So it's really, really important that we be able to do that through the different types of learning environment. And in that process, we do need a flexible TVET provision. So we need TVET providers that are willing to go to the workplace to help students and workers at work whilst they work, without interfering with the productivity of the day, but also for the employers to allow their workers to come away from the front line of operations into a classroom environment, maybe to do some of the learning and maybe to provide that equipment to make that happen. But it does need that diverse range of provision to make this happen. And all of that has to work together. It can't work in isolation. All of these providers, perhaps they deliver different elements of the same learning program, and you do need that, to give you resilience and capacity and capability. And then, of course, finally, we come to this conundrum of teaching ability. So in the UK, there is a requirement for teachers to go into the workplace and to do continuous professional development on a regular basis so that they remain competent at all times, because new technologies come along, new requirements, new laws, new ways of dealing with power. For example, we're now looking at hydrogen fuel, we're looking at different types of energy generation. So all of these things require new skills and updated skills, and that's whether it's teamwork skills or whether it's engineering skills or other skills, problem solving, etc. So you've got to think about all of that in the teaching capability and make sure that teachers are up to date, delivering the best that they can deliver, but also that they're given the equipment. And it's interesting actually that COVID, of course, turned all the teachers into online teachers over the recent months. But many teachers, even here in the UK, didn't have all the skills that they needed to be able to deliver that. So they themselves had to go through some learning quickly on how to get the best out of Teams and WebEx and all the other platforms that exist, and how to utilize that within a learning environment and make learning engaging and impactful for students. So there are a number of key areas just to kind of refresh on, and that is making sure that professional skills development is employer driven, with employers at the heart, and get employers from the infrastructural development sector to develop the standards and develop the curriculum in partnership with providers. There is a responsibility in all of this to work with the providers, work with the employers and the students to make sure that you manage the risk, that you understand the policy, that you deliver high quality teaching and learning practices and performance in a safe environment, that you deploy all of the technologies that are required,